You see, funny things begin to happen when radical Islamic regimes like the one in Iran that are being led by murderous dictators begin to be removed and toppled because you have a president that has gigantic cojones and is willing to do the work to replace the globalist system, the deep state system that runs directly through Iran with the American system. What happens is that some of the people in this country that have been carrying the water and pushing the propaganda for the Iranian regime start to be exposed. And I have a feeling that Thomas Massie is going to be haunted by this photograph. And it also makes me wonder, do you think that maybe this might have something to do with why Donald Trump has been so mad at Thomas Massie lately? Do you think that maybe Trump knows that Thomas Massie is shaking hands with people who have been leading the lobbying effort in this country for nearly 20 years for the Iranian regime? So this is a photograph that was taken about 3 months ago in early December. That's Thomas Massie, that's Ro Khanna, and this is a guy by the name of Trita Parsi, who is the Executive Vice President and co-founder of Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Don't you just love the word statecraft? If you know anything about what the CIA and those organizations do around the world, you know what statecraft is. This is Thomas Massie receiving an award from this organization. Now, for some background, the Quincy Institute is a transpartisan action tank that promotes U.S. foreign policy centered on military restraint, diplomacy, and avoiding endless wars. What does that mean? Well, basically, they help to keep murderous thugs and dictators in power much longer than they should by encouraging our government to play nice with them. But you see, the thing is, QI, or Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, didn't start until 2019 because Trita Parsi was involved with another organization for about 16 years prior to that, an organization called the NIAC. And you can think of the NIAC, the National Iranian American Council, kind of like AIPAC for Iran. It's a lobbying organization that many people have for a long time believed was in fact the regime's lobbying group in the United States. In fact, U.S. lawmakers and conservative, neoconservative outlets, a whole bunch of people encouraged the Department of Justice back in 2020 to open a FARA investigation because of the amplification of regime propaganda. That's what those guys were doing. And would you be surprised to find out for the 16 years prior to founding QI, Trita Parsi was in fact the founder and president of the NIAC, the organization that was in fact operating as the Iranian regime's lobbying group in the United States? Oh, and don't worry, you don't have to just take my word for it, because back in 2012, Trita Parsi and the NIAC sued somebody for defamation for alleging that Trita Parsi and the NIAC was in fact operating as the Iranian regime's mouthpiece in this country. And what's funny is the judge threw it out by basically saying that the allegations that the NIAC was operating as a mouthpiece for the Iranian regime is not inconsistent with the idea that he was first and foremost an advocate for the regime. So I've been running around all day asking every one of the content creators and influencers over on X and throughout social media that seem to be driving the Iranian regime's propaganda messaging, who's been paying you? And perhaps the person that we should have been asking was Thomas Massie, because all of the bootlickers of Thomas Massie are the ones who are out doing, the propagandizing on behalf of the Iranian regime. And then it just dawned on me. Maybe I should find out, when did Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna really start to put pressure on the Trump administration to release the Epstein files? Because recently the Iranian regime started talking an awful lot about having access to Epstein files that they were going to release. I wonder if the timing of that isn't just a little bit suspicious. And this is very weird, because Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna couldn't have cared less about the Epstein files until they introduced H.R. 4405 back on July 15th, 2025, which was right after the United States bombed the nuclear facilities of Iran. And now here's Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna receiving an award from a guy who led an organization that during a defamation lawsuit, a judge said is not inconsistent with the idea that he was first and foremost an advocate for the regime. So to all the Thomas Massie bootlickers who decided to pick up the Iranian propaganda mantle today, the question still remains: who's paying you?